Welcome to another Multiplayer Monday. I'm George Gonzalez, and I'm obsessed with making games. Today, we're going to talk about the player and specifically what you see with the layers. Because in multiplayer games, you will have certain objects that you do not see or want to see in the local camera. So, we're going to go over this specifically with your VR player or any other type of player. This also applies to first person shooters because when you play a multiplayer game, you will see a full avatar oftentimes, like Call of Duty. But when you are playing Call of Duty, you don't see the full avatar. And maybe if you crouch down, you'll see that, but you don't see your own face. Uh, and then if you look in a mirror, or you have a camera, or you do a replay, that will show the what you don't see also. So you have to be aware when you're actually making the game, you have to decide what's happening. Because oftentimes you think that you're gonna just have a one-to-one with everything and it's gonna work well. But the problem is that the gun has to match the player's scope. Um, and so oftentimes the first person camera will be totally different than the third person or that the what other people see. Just for the sake of accuracy with the screen, so that players have the best first person shooter experience. So there's a lot of that happens in making games, especially in multiplayer games, that you don't see that in in single player games because you don't have to worry about it. So let's talk about it. And I'm going to show you an example and why I need to do this. So we have in yellow the local player. This is if you're single player game, this is all you have to worry about. Just the character controller, and that's it. And you have the camera angle, and that's it. When you have a network version, you will have for a multiplayer game, you'll have a network version. So this is what happens, and that's where things start getting interesting because you can try just networking this, saying, "Oh, I just network my player, and that's all I have to worry about." The problem lies that you don't want to see the network object. Oftentimes, when you see the network version, it lags behind because there's some delays. And so what you want to do is you want to have a local player that works perfectly fine with your inputs, okay? Because you don't want the player to feel like their inputs are delayed because then you feel the lag and it feels off, especially in VR because the player's moving. I don't want to have to delay or else it'll feel sluggish and unprofessional. Okay, so and I will show you an example. After that, you want to see the VR or the multiplayer rig, and you have two versions because it's multiplayer or it's networked. You will see your version too. So, for example, let's say I'm networking this mouse, and I will, because it's networked, you'll see both. You'll see that version of the mouse on your client too. Because, like, let's say you spawn a health pack, you all see the health pack. But when it comes to the player, see, we already have this rig locally, and so you don't. If you have you want your character attached that you see to this rig, you don't want to see any of this rig, and so you want to hide that for the local player. And then for the network players, they all see that network version of yourself, which sometimes might lag a little bit, but it's okay because you are the one that is having the experience and you want the player to have the smoothest experience with their character. Okay. And then you have the camera because you have your camera that you see, right? And so for example, let's say I have a head and my head moves with my VR headset. Or I have a mouse that moves the head and sees where I'm at. The head it, usually when you move around in Call of Duty, you scroll and the the gun will go with the head. Okay. But you have to be aware of what you're doing, right, with the camera, and you have to be aware of what the what that does for the other players and what the other players see. Because my camera will see other people's proxies, other clients. So what? How does that change, right? Like if they move their head, do I see their full body moving around or just their head? Also layers, because if you're moving your head, like you don't want to see your head because the mesh is gonna be in the way, and so what happens usually you turn off the head, but you only want to turn off the head for your local player. Now, what happens if you walk up to a mirror or a window, or you have a replay camera, and if you leave your local player with the head off, you'll see that you won't see anything, right? You won't see the head, and so that's why you need different layers because you might want a specific layer that your camera doesn't render, but the other camera, whether it's a mirror or a selfie cam or a recording cam for streamers or content creators, they need that camera to display their avatar, how other people see them, or how do you want the world to see. And so that's what I'm gonna show you because these are things you don't think about until you actually have to do them, and then you realize, oh crap, how do I do that? And the reason why I bring up the camera is because when you have a multiplayer game, you usually want to either have replays, even if it's not competitive. You might, if you want your game to be successful, you also want people to be able to share it or create content with it. And so the easier you do, make it the better. Okay, so let me show you. So right now, I can see my hands. See, I see my hands. I look down. I don't know if you guys can see. No, you can't see. Um, I can see my body, but I don't see my head, which is fine. But if I look here, you'll see that in the editor, I can see both. See how they're a little bit off? And I have to fix that, right? To see so that there's less discrepancy between the objects. And so we have in here the fusion rig. So this is the network rig. I don't see this. I see how they both move. And I decided to move my whole body, not just my head with it. Okay, so let's see. So we have the avatar, we have the head here. And because I have it tilted, it'll tilt in the game. I have my hands. You'll see how it lags. So one is my VR, and see how you'll see both screens. In this screen, I only see my real hand. So let me show you where that's at. Come on, here. And in here, you see that I have my input, the right hand, but then I should have my avatar in here, body, and then the right hand has the right model. So there's animations. So you see, that's my actual hand, and then I have the delay hand that I can't see it. So I'm going to show you what it looks like with both of them on. When I go in the fusion rig, I have my hand seen here. I have this layer called hide for local user, and it does exactly that. It hides it. So if I put, and this is my right animation, I think. When I put it, let's say in default, or maybe I should do everything. Yeah, so just for now. Okay, now you'll see that I have this lag on my left side. So on my main screen, you'll see that I'm lagging. And so the faster I do, okay, and now let's say I just do the network version without, so if I remove the local version, the place in here, let's say I change that to hide. Now this feels like it's delayed. It feels weird because I'm only seeing the delayed version. And to you, it might not seem like much, but when you're in there, you actually feel the difference. So in here, I'm gonna bring it back. Now I have both of them on. I'm gonna change it back to hide. Okay, and I can do spells. So a little loud. Okay. So what is that? So how did I do this? And then the other thing I want to show you, okay, because I can do spell, and I can see how you can see. I can see almost. I think I see both. No, it's only one. But you can see through. The black one is not working. So if I go into the local player, here, main avatar, head empty, hoodie main. See how this one, face mask. See how it says hide for local player? It should be default to that. And now you can see it. So the idea is that it'll render in the camera so I can see myself in there. So sometimes you want a combination. So let me show you. So with this recording, I can also do third person. I like third person more, and it's not working because I need to fix the buttons. But you can see, and you can see the spells through there. That is the main reason for doing this. And let me show you. It all works because of those layers. So let me show you what the layers, add layers. And here, okay, we have hide local user. We have this live cam rendering in case I have any issues where I need something to render in the camera only, but not in the player. I can do that here. So let's go and fix this. So if I do head, we have the OG, start with that, or maybe the default. And then in here, this was set to that right now. And I'm gonna fix that. And now it'll work for that. Okay, so let's go over one at a time, okay? So the first thing, the local player. You'll notice I have a VR rig and a fusion rig. The first thing I do though is I think of the layers, right? So we have hide for local user, and that's the main thing. You don't need anything else. Now I have a live cam rendering in case I need a specific layer just for the camera that the player also hides, okay? But the camera doesn't. So this one, the camera will see, and it'll hide from the local player. But maybe sometimes I need a one-off. That's different. So, but for now, hide for local user works. On the camera, we have the culling mask. In the culling mask, we just take out hide for local player right there. I'm gonna move over this way. So hide for local player right there. See? So that one doesn't render. Okay? And that way you can take out stuff from rendering. The next one, what we need to do, because this one is the complicated one where we have to figure out, okay, if it's in the client or the proxy, it stays the same. But if not, we have to change that. And so in here, in the rig, we have this render. Okay. So we have this script called set layer recursively. So what happens is, the way I have it set up right now is that it changes everything to default. And so for the other people, for myself, I have it set up correctly. Yeah, cosmetic display. And when we set up the cosmetics, they'll be set up with a specific layer, right? So we have this configure remote layers. So if you have state authority, we configure the render. If not, we're fine. So we do layer 7, which is the right here, hide for local player. So this one, everything is default when it's for the other players. But if we need to change, we change it when we have state authority. We change the render. And we do that every time we spawn the cosmetic. Okay, so that will take care of that. And you can do the inverse, you can do whatever. You can do a toggle, so that way it takes care of both. So whether you can say, okay, if this is the host, set it to hide. If it's the client, set it to the default. In this case, I decided I was gonna leave everything as default and change it here. So the other one is redundant, but it's just in case. It's to catch errors in case something is a different layer. But that is the main thing, is I check if it has state authority, and I spawn that for each player. So in here, you can see I did it manually, hide for local player, hide for local user, or whatever it's called. So I have that layer set, okay? And then the next thing is the camera. Like we said, we have, what does the other camera see? And so usually the camera sees default, unless you hide for local player or local user. And then we have the live cam for us. In this case scenario, they have multiple cameras, but they're all off by default. So the way we set them up is in here. So the reason why we don't have this is because we don't want to see the fusion rig. So if I wanted to see the fusion rig, I would turn that on. If I do need something that hides the player and records here, that's why I still would use that. But for now, it's because we don't want to have this one also render the local player. So they're all good. So this is so that we don't see this one right here. Because this version is the odd man. This is like the third wheel. You want this for everybody. You want this for yourself. And this you don't want to see. You want to hide it with this. Okay? And so that's why there's this layer right now. Hide for local user. Okay? It's pretty straightforward. And it really is a toggle. And it's up to you how you want to do it. But you have to be aware that those are the different dynamics with the display of the layer and the camera, what the camera sees. Because you will start running into seeing doubles. When you're debugging, you will see things go wrong. And you're like, well, is it the local player? Is it the VR player? And you'll have to test to kind of, okay, I am the local, I'm the host, they're the client. And you have to do, sometimes you might need a third player to figure out what's going on. Okay, like if they hit each other, this happens. If I hit him, what's going on? Where is it breaking the logic? Why am I seeing doubles? This is what causes a lot of problems with debugging in multiplayer and why it makes it so much harder, because you can go insane trying to figure out what's going on. So even though this thing was a little bit long-winded and it almost offered you like little knowledge, it is almost foundational for multiplayer setups, because you need to understand these things. You need to understand the layers, what's happening. You have to be in control of your avatar, your character controller, and understand all the little things, like the caveats with the rendering, with the collision. Those are things we've seen. And understanding your character controller, how it's networked, and also the rigid bodies and collisions and everything that happens, how it's working is very important, because when you get to debugging, you need to figure it out and you need to know what's going on. You can't just guess, because the more you guess, the less likely it is that you'll find the problem. And so I hope this helps. We'll see you next week when we do more multiplayer Monday stuff and figure out more techniques and principles that come up with multiplayer games. See you next week.